Let me ask you a tough one. Many of the critics back then said that some of the friends that you had at the top echelons that gave you the answer last time, I think it was on Questions on Doctrine,
yes,
that what they said, the guys down below didn't hold. Did you feel any of that kind of heat?
Oh, I got a lot of heat on the subject, but what encouraged me was the fact that I met many Adventists, thousands of them around the world, who came to me personally and thanked me for telling the truth because it was their faith.
Just to mention here, John Ankerberg is not telling the truth about our faith or our history. And if he says that the answers that he was badgering the General Conference to give him were actually disagreed with lower down in the church, and that the lower down in the church they really were holding to the fundamental teachings of Christianity and of Adventism, and that the General Conference has sort of compromised with John Ankerberg, then this is because the General Conference represents the Sanhedrin, which was the unit of the Pharisees, the religious leaders of Israel. Just as in the beginning Israel was in Egypt, so likewise the Seventh-day Adventist Church is in the world. Just as before Moses was raised up as a prophet to lead and guide the people, likewise with Adventism, Ellen White was raised up as a prophet to lead and to guide the people. Just as in the Old Testament there was 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, God had actually designed that they would go into the promised land immediately, but because of unbelief, there was a period of wandering in the wilderness. So likewise with our parallel, God actually designed for us to already be in heaven now, and not to be in the world of sin and suffering so long. God had designed for things to get done quickly, but because of the unbelief of professed Adventists, we have been in this world a lot longer, because due to our unbelief we have not given the message, and because, according to Matthew 24:14, the gospel has not gone out to all the world yet, it's not been yet preached to every creature. This is the reason why Jesus has not come, and the gospel is the first angel's message. We find this in Revelation chapter 14 verse 6 and 7, that the first angel's message was the everlasting gospel. And because this has not been universally understood by everyone, Jesus yet hasn't come. But if everyone understands the three angels' messages, then he can come much quicker. Throughout Israel's history, the leaders generally became corrupt and rejected and killed the prophets. We find an account of this, several accounts in the Gospels, when Jesus is giving the parable to the Pharisees. In the parable of the vineyard, the parable goes that the husbandman, which is God the Father, he had sent to them a number of servants, and one they killed, and one they had beaten and left him wounded. And this was God sending the spiritual leaders, the Pharisees and so on, true prophets like Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Hosea, Habakkuk, Micah, and these spiritual leaders of the church killed the true messengers of God. And then the parable goes, I will send them my son also, as a last chance. And then the Pharisees said, this is the heir, come, let us kill him, and the inheritance shall be ours. And then they plotted to kill him, and they killed him. And then the vineyard, which is the church, in Isaiah chapter 5, verse 7, it says the vineyard is the house of Israel, it's the church. The church was disinherited from the Jews and given instead to those Jews which had accepted the truth, which was the disciples, and those whom the disciples got to join the church in the earlier chapters of the book of Acts. And in addition to that, the Gentiles, which were also incorporated into the New Testament church. Because the Jews killed their own Messiah, their own predicted Messiah that was foretold in the Old Testament. And so likewise, as we are moving towards the Sunday law, many in the Adventist church are compromising their faith and crucifying Christ in the same way. Not in the same way, because Christ is not being literally crucified, but he is being betrayed by his people. In his people, rather. So when the true follower is injured and so on, Jesus said, if you have done it to the least of these, my brethren, you've done it to me. Or if you've not done it to the least of these, my brethren, you've not done it to me. And Christ, is written in Hebrews that he's not ashamed to call us brethren. So when his brethren suffer, he suffers. He is crucified again when we backbite against each other and slander against each other and commit adultery, and any sin which damages us or each other damages Christ. It may be true that some in the Adventist leadership have sort of lost their way spiritually and denied the truths that have made us a people once a people, but this just proves that true reformation doesn't come from the higher powers of the General Conference, but it will come from beneath. It will come from you and me reforming the church. And now we have God's true followers with his true message, which is just a very small portion really of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, bearing like the original message of the 2,300 days and the three angels' messages, which are as guiding lights to guide our understanding for this time. And now in the next video, I'm going to be answering John Ankerberg's second accusation to do with the fact that 1844 is not a biblical date that can be proven from the Bible, but it was just something that was made up. That was his second accusation.